If you're over 60 and you've been doing everything right, eating your salads, taking your daily walks, checking off every box on your wellness list, I need you to stop what you're doing and listen to what I'm about to tell you. Because after more than 40 years of research, after conducting studies that actually reversed heart disease without surgery or medication, after working with thousands of patients who were told they needed bypass surgery, I've discovered something that still shocks people when I tell them. 3 habits that you believe are protecting your heart may actually be doing the exact opposite. These aren't the obvious culprits like smoking or eating fast food. No, these are practices that health magazines praise, that your friends recommend, that even some doctors still encourage. And yet, deep inside your arteries, at the microscopic level where your health is truly won or lost, these seemingly innocent habits are setting the stage for plaque buildup, inflammation, and the kind of arterial damage that leads to heart attacks and strokes. Now I know what you're thinking. You're thinking, Dr. Ornish, I've been careful. I've changed my diet. I exercise. I do everything they tell me to do, and I believe you. But here's what I discovered through decades of clinical research, including our landmark lifestyle heart trial, where we proved that heart disease could be reversed, something the medical establishment said was impossible. The difference between arteries that heal and arteries that continue to deteriorate isn't just about what you do. It's about understanding the deeper mechanisms of how your body actually works, and recognizing that some of the most popular health advice out there is based on outdated science, incomplete understanding, or worse, on research that was never designed with your long-term arterial health in mind. So before you take another supplement, before you plan another meal, before you commit to another health routine, give me your attention for the next several minutes. Because what I'm about to share with you isn't just theory from an ivory tower. It's based on peer-reviewed studies I've conducted where patients with severe coronary artery disease, people who were candidates for bypass surgery, actually saw their blockages shrink, their chest pain disappear, and their lives transform. I've worked with presidents, I've testified before Congress, and I've spent my entire career challenging conventional cardiology, because I've seen with my own eyes what's possible when we address the root causes instead of just managing symptoms. And the principles that made that healing possible directly contradict 3 habits you might be following right now. Let me paint you a picture of what's happening inside your body at this very moment. Your arteries, those crucial highways that carry oxygen-rich blood to every cell, every organ, every tissue in your body, are lined with a delicate single layer of cells called the endothelium. Think of the endothelium as the interior surface of a garden hose, except this surface is alive, dynamic, and constantly communicating with the rest of your body. When your endothelium is healthy, it's smooth and slippery, allowing blood to flow freely. It produces nitric oxide, a molecule that keeps your blood vessels relaxed and open. It prevents inflammation. It stops blood clots from forming inappropriately. It's literally the first line of defense in keeping your cardiovascular system functioning properly. But here's what happens when that endothelium becomes damaged. Small injuries occur in that delicate lining. Your body, trying to protect you, sends inflammatory cells to patch things up. Cholesterol particles, especially the oxidized kind, start sticking to those injured spots. White blood cells arrive and consume that cholesterol, turning into foam cells. Smooth muscle cells migrate from deeper layers of the arterial wall and start multiplying. Gradually, layer by layer, day by day, a plaque forms. At first, you feel nothing. Your body compensates. The artery expands slightly to maintain blood flow, but over months and years that plaque grows. It hardens, it narrows the passage, and most dangerous of all, it becomes unstable, developing a thin cap over a soft lipid-rich core, like a volcano waiting to erupt. When that cap ruptures, a blood clot forms instantly, and that's when you have a heart attack or stroke. Not because the blockage slowly closed off the artery over time, but because a plaque that might have only been blocking 30 or 40% of the vessel suddenly became 100% blocked in a matter of seconds. This is what keeps me up at night. Because I've seen too many people, good people who thought they were doing everything right, end up in the emergency room, confused and frightened. asking how this could have happened when they'd been so careful. And when I look at their history, when I really dig into their daily habits, I almost always find the same 3 patterns. 3 habits that seem healthy on the surface, but are actually accelerating the very process they're trying to prevent. Now, you might be wondering why you haven't heard this before. Why isn't this common knowledge? And the answer is both simple and frustrating. Our medical system is extraordinarily good at acute interventions. If you're having a heart attack right now, modern medicine can save your life with stents and clot-busting drugs and bypass surgery. It's miraculous, truly. But our system is not set up to address the underlying causes of chronic disease. We're trained to prescribe medications that lower cholesterol or blood pressure, to perform procedures that open blocked arteries, but we're not trained to ask the deeper questions about why those arteries became blocked in the first place. And more importantly, we're not trained to recognize that some interventions, while well-intentioned, might be creating their own set of problems. I've spent my career being called controversial, because I've insisted on looking at the whole person, not just the diseased artery. I've insisted that we have far more control over our health than we've been told. And I've proven through rigorous scientific studies that have been published in the most prestigious medical journals in the world that when we address the root causes of arterial disease, the body has an almost miraculous capacity to heal itself. But that healing can only happen when we stop doing the things that are causing the damage in the first place, even when those things are disguised as healthy habits. So let's talk about the first habit that might be secretly damaging your arteries, and this one surprises almost everyone I tell. It's the habit of eating lean animal protein at every meal, because you've been told you need protein to stay strong as you age. Now, before you stop listening because you think I'm going to give you some extreme diet you can't possibly follow, hear me out. I'm not talking about an occasional piece of chicken or fish. I'm talking about the people who have made animal protein the centerpiece of every single meal, because they've bought into the idea that protein is the key to healthy aging, that you need it to maintain muscle mass, that plant proteins aren't complete or sufficient. You've been told that chicken breast is a health food, that fish is brain food, that you should be eating protein at breakfast, lunch, and dinner to keep your metabolism up and your muscles strong. But here's what we discovered in our research, and this is critical. Every single time you consume animal protein, even the lean so-called healthy kinds, you're consuming not just protein, but also saturated fat, dietary cholesterol, and something called advanced glycation end products that form when animal products are cooked at high temperatures. Even more importantly, animal protein triggers the production of a compound called trimethylamine inoxide, or TMAO, in your gut. Your gut bacteria metabolize certain compounds in meat, and your liver converts them into TMA. Which directly damages that endothelial lining we talked about. TMAO promotes inflammation, increases cholesterol deposition in arterial walls, and makes blood more likely to clot. Study after study has shown that people with higher TMAO levels have dramatically higher rates of heart attack, stroke, and death. Now, I want you to understand something crucial here. I'm not saying protein is bad. Your body absolutely needs protein, especially as you age. But here's what the research shows clearly. Plant proteins don't produce Plant proteins come packaged with fiber, antioxidants, and phytochemicals that actually protect your arteries instead of damaging them. When we put patients on a whole food, plant-based diet in our studies, something remarkable happened. Within weeks, their endothelial function improved. The lining of their arteries started producing more nitric oxide. Inflammation markers dropped. And over months and years, we could actually see on angiograms that their blockages were shrinking, not staying the same, not progressing slowly, actually reversing. But the people who continue to eat lean chicken or fish daily, even when they cut out red meat, even when they eliminated processed foods, even when they exercised regularly, they didn't see the same reversal. Their disease might have stabilized, which is better than progression, but they weren't healing. And that's because every meal with animal protein was like taking one step forward and one step back. The exercise helped. Eliminating processed foods helped. But the animal protein at every meal was continuing to damage their arteries at the cellular level. I remember a patient, let's call him Robert, who came to see me at 68 years old. He'd had a heart attack 2 years earlier, had 2 stents placed, and was on 5 different medications. He told me proudly that he'd completely changed his diet after his heart attack. No more red meat, no more fried foods, no more desserts. He was eating grilled chicken breast, salmon twice a week, egg whites for breakfast, and lots of vegetables. By conventional standards, he was doing great. His cholesterol had come down with the statins. His blood pressure was controlled. But he still had chest pain when he climbed stairs. He still felt exhausted, and he was terrified of having another heart attack. When I explained to him that his seemingly healthy diet was still promoting arterial damage, he looked at me like I'd grown a second head. "But Dr. Ornish," he said, "everyone tells me chicken and fish are heart healthy. My cardiologist said I could eat as much as I want, as long as it's not red meat." And that's when I had to explain what I'm explaining to you now. The research is clear. The studies are published. But the message hasn't filtered through to mainstream medicine yet because it challenges too many assumptions, too many dietary guidelines, too many commercial interests that profit from selling animal products as health foods. Robert decided to trust me and try the program. Within 3 weeks, his chest pain had diminished. Within 3 months, it was completely gone. His energy returned. He lost 20 pounds without trying. And when we did a follow-up angiogram a year later, his blockages had measurably decreased. His cardiologist couldn't believe it. Robert himself couldn't believe it. But I could believe it because I'd seen it happen hundreds of times before. Now, let's move on to the second habit that might be damaging your arteries. And this one is equally surprising because it's something that's been promoted as essential for heart health for decades. It's the habit of taking high doses of omega-3 fish oil supplements because you've been told they're good for your heart. Walk into any health food store, any pharmacy, and you'll see bottles and bottles of fish oil capsules, often with heart-healthy labels and claims about reducing inflammation and protecting against heart disease. The omega-3 fatty acids in fish, particularly EPA and DHA, have been studied extensively, and early research did suggest they might have cardiovascular benefits. So millions of people over 60 are dutifully taking their fish oil capsules every single day, believing they're doing something protective. But here's what the most recent large-scale research has shown, and this is research that's been published in the most prestigious journals, including the Journal of the American Medical Association and the New England Journal of Medicine. When researchers conducted rigorous placebo-controlled trials with thousands of participants, they found that fish oil supplements did not reduce the risk of heart attack, stroke, or cardiovascular death. In fact, some studies suggested they might increase the risk of atrial fibrillation, an irregular heart rhythm that itself increases stroke risk. One major trial called REDUCE-IT did show benefits, but it used a prescription form of highly purified EPA at very high doses, along with a controversial placebo that might have made the control group look worse by comparison. The debate continues in the medical literature, but the clear, consistent message is this: fish oil supplements are not the miracle heart protector that they've been marketed as. Now, why would I mention this as something that might be damaging your arteries? Because of what you're not doing while you're relying on fish oil. You're not getting the full spectrum of beneficial nutrients that come from whole food sources. You're not addressing the underlying causes of inflammation and arterial damage. And in some cases, you're consuming oxidized fats. Fish oil is highly prone to oxidation, meaning it can go rancid, and when you consume oxidized fats, you're actually introducing free radicals into your system that can damage that delicate endothelial lining. Some studies have found that many over-the-counter fish oil supplements are already oxidized by the time they reach consumers, despite being within their expiration date. But here's the deeper issue, and this is what I really want you to understand. The omega-3 fatty acids that are beneficial for heart health are available from plant sources, specifically from foods like ground flax seeds, chia seeds, hemp seeds, and walnuts. These provide alpha-linolenic acid, or ALA, which your body can convert to EPA and DHA, though admittedly at modest rates. But here's what's different. When you get your omega-3s from whole plant foods, you're also getting fiber. You're getting lignans. You're getting antioxidants. You're getting a whole matrix of nutrients that work synergistically. You're not just isolating one component and taking it in megadoses while ignoring everything else. In our studies, we didn't give people fish oil supplements. We gave them a whole food, plant-based diet that naturally included good sources of omega-3s from plants. And their inflammation markers dropped. Their endothelial function improved. Their arteries healed. Not because of some magic supplement, but because we addressed the root causes of inflammation and arterial damage. I had a patient, let's call her Margaret, who was 72 when she came to see me. She had a cabinet full of supplements that would make a pharmacist jealous. Fish oil, cocuine, vitamin D, calcium, magnesium, multivitamins, you name it. She was spending hundreds of dollars a month on supplements because she'd read articles and watched videos that convinced her each one was essential for heart health. She'd had stents placed 3 years earlier and was terrified of needing more. She took her supplements religiously, believing they were keeping her alive. But when we looked at her diet, it was terrible. She was eating processed foods, restaurant meals several times a week, very few vegetables, almost no fruits. She told me she didn't have time to cook, that healthy food didn't taste good, and that she was relying on her supplements to make up for her less-than-perfect diet. And here's what I told her. Here's what I tell all my patients. You cannot supplement your way out of a bad diet. You cannot take a pill that undoes the damage from eating foods that injure your arteries 3 times a day. It doesn't work that way. Margaret was skeptical at first. She thought I was going to take away her safety net. But I explained that I wasn't asking her to stop taking supplements because they were dangerous, though the fish oil might have been doing more harm than good. I was asking her to redirect her energy, her money, and her attention toward the things that actually matter. Toward eating foods that actively heal rather than harm. Toward stress management. Toward connection and community. Toward the lifestyle interventions that my research has proven actually reverse heart disease. She agreed to try it for 3 months. We stopped the fish oil. We simplified her supplement regimen to just vitamin B12. Which is essential when you're not eating animal products, and vitamin D since she lived in a northern climate and didn't get much sun. And we focused all her energy on eating whole, unprocessed plant foods. Within weeks, she felt better than she had in years. Her energy soared, her sleep improved, the brain fog she'd been experiencing cleared up, and her blood work showed dramatic improvements in inflammation markers, cholesterol levels, and blood sugar control. Now, let's talk about the third habit that might be secretly damaging your arteries. And this is the one that gets the most pushback when I mention it, because it's so deeply ingrained in our culture's approach to health. It's the habit of doing intense exercise, particularly high-intensity interval training or long-distance running, because you've been told that more exercise is always better. Now, before you think I'm telling you to become sedentary, let me be absolutely clear. Regular moderate exercise is one of the most powerful things you can do for your cardiovascular health. It's essential. It's non-negotiable. But there's a crucial difference between health-promoting exercise and exercise that might actually be creating oxidative stress and inflammation in your body. Here's what happens when you exercise intensely, especially as you get older. Your body requires more oxygen to fuel your muscles. Your heart rate skyrockets, your blood pressure spikes, and your body produces reactive oxygen species, also known as free radicals, as a byproduct of that intense metabolic activity. Now your body has antioxidant systems that can handle normal levels of free radicals. In fact, moderate exercise actually enhances those antioxidant systems. But when you push too hard, too often, especially without adequate recovery, you can overwhelm those protective mechanisms. Those excess free radicals start damaging cells, including the endothelial cells lining your arteries. They oxidize LDL cholesterol, turning it into the form that's most likely to infiltrate your arterial walls and form plaque. They trigger inflammatory responses, and over time this can accelerate rather than prevent arterial aging. There's a growing body of research showing that extreme endurance athletes, people who run marathons and ultramarathons regularly, who do intense CrossFit workouts daily, who push themselves to their absolute limits, actually have higher rates of atrial fibrillation, higher coronary artery calcium scores, and in some cases more arterial plaque than moderate exercisers. This doesn't mean exercise is bad. It means that there's a sweet spot, a zone where you get all the benefits of movement without the oxidative stress of extreme exertion. In our program, we recommend a moderate exercise, about 30 minutes of walking or equivalent activity at least 5 days a week. Not sprinting, not running until you can't breathe, not pushing yourself into the red zone where your heart is pounding and you feel like you might collapse. Just consistent, moderate movement that raises your heart rate into a comfortable zone where you can still hold a conversation. And you know what we found? That level of activity, combined with the other lifestyle changes I'm talking about, was sufficient to reverse heart disease. We didn't need people to become marathon runners. We didn't need them to do burpees until they vomited. We needed them to move their bodies regularly and consistently in a way that enhanced rather than stressed their cardiovascular system. I remember a gentleman, let's call him Thomas, who came to see me at 65. He'd been a competitive runner in his younger years and had maintained that intensity into his 60s. He was running 40 to 50 miles a week, doing speed workouts, racing in 10Ks and half marathons. He was proud of his fitness level, proud that he could outrun men half his age, but he developed atrial fibrillation and irregular heart rhythm that put him at risk for stroke. His cardiologist wanted to put him on blood thinners and potentially do a procedure called ablation to correct the rhythm problem. But when I looked at his history, when I really listened to his story, I heard something his other doctors had missed. Thomas was using exercise as a way to manage stress. He ran hard because he was anxious. He pushed himself to exhaustion because it was the only way he could sleep at night. He'd lost his wife a few years earlier and was lonely, depressed, and using running as his escape. And while exercise can certainly help with mood, the intensity and frequency at which he was exercising was actually adding to his body's stress burden rather than relieving it. His cortisol levels were chronically elevated. His body was in a constant state of fight or flight, and that chronic stress, combined with the oxidative stress from extreme exercise, was damaging his heart's electrical system. When I suggested he cut back on his running intensity and add stress management techniques like meditation and yoga, he resisted. He thought I was asking him to give up the one thing that made him feel alive. But I wasn't asking him to stop moving. I was asking him to move in a way that healed rather than harmed. I was asking him to address the underlying emotional pain that was driving his compulsive exercise. And I was asking him to understand that at 65, his body's recovery mechanisms weren't what they were at 25, and that what felt like being in shape might actually be pushing his system beyond its capacity to repair itself. Thomas eventually agreed to try it. He cut his running to 20 miles a week at an easier pace. He started doing yoga 3 times a week. He joined the meditation group and started seeing a therapist to work through his grief. And something remarkable happened. Within 6 months, his atrial fibrillation episodes decreased dramatically. Within a year, they stopped entirely. His cardiologist was amazed and asked what he'd done. Thomas told him about the lifestyle program, and the cardiologist, to his credit, was open-minded enough to be impressed by the results, even if he didn't fully understand the mechanisms. Now, I want to step back and help you understand the deeper principle that connects all 3 of these habits. What you're seeing is a pattern where well-intentioned advice, often based on partial understanding or outdated research, ends up causing harm because it doesn't address the fundamental mechanisms of arterial health. The common thread running through all 3 habits is this. They're all based on the idea that you can target one specific aspect of health in isolation and expect comprehensive results. Eat lean protein for muscle health. Take fish oil for inflammation. Exercise intensely for cardiovascular fitness. But your body doesn't work in isolation. Your cardiovascular system is intimately connected to your immune system, your digestive system, your endocrine system, your nervous system. Everything affects everything else. When you damage your arterial endothelium with animal proteins in the TMA, they produce. You're not just affecting your arteries. You're creating system-wide inflammation that affects your brain, your joints, your kidneys, every organ in your body. When you rely on supplements instead of whole foods, you're missing out on thousands of beneficial compounds that we haven't even identified yet. Compounds that work together in ways we're only beginning to understand. And when you exercise so intensely that you create oxidative stress, you're not just affecting your heart, you're accelerating aging throughout your entire body. The solution, the real secret that I've proven through decades of research, is to address health holistically. To understand that your arteries don't exist in a vacuum. They're part of a complex, interconnected system that responds to everything you do, everything you eat, everything you think, and everything you feel. This is why our program doesn't just focus on diet. It includes stress management, moderate exercise, and group support. Because we know that chronic stress damages arteries just as surely as saturated fat does. We know that loneliness and isolation are risk factors for heart disease that rival smoking. We know that how you live is as important as what you eat. Let me explain the mechanisms in a way that really drives this home. Think about your endothelium again, that delicate lining of your arteries. It's constantly sensing and responding to everything in your bloodstream. When you eat a meal high in saturated fat and animal protein, within hours your endothelium becomes dysfunctional. It stops producing adequate nitric oxide. It becomes sticky, attracting inflammatory cells. It allows LDL cholesterol to penetrate more easily. We can actually measure this in real time by doing something called flow-mediated dilation, where we use ultrasound to see how well your arteries relax and expand in response to increased blood flow. After a high-fat meal, that function is impaired for 4 to 6 hours. If you're eating that way 3 times a day, your endothelium never gets a chance to recover. It's chronically dysfunctional, chronically inflamed, chronically vulnerable to damage. But when you eat a whole food, plant-based meal, the opposite happens. Your endothelial function improves within hours. The antioxidants in plant foods scavenge free radicals. The fiber feeds beneficial gut bacteria that produce short-chain fatty acids, which have anti-inflammatory effects throughout your body. The phytochemicals activate genes that enhance your body's own antioxidant and detoxification systems. It's not just about avoiding bad things. It's about actively consuming foods that turn on your body's healing mechanisms. Now let's talk about stress, because this is where the exercise piece connects to everything else. When you're chronically stressed, whether from emotional turmoil, from overtraining, or from the normal pressures of life, your body produces cortisol and adrenaline. These stress hormones have profound effects on your cardiovascular system. They increase your heart rate and blood pressure, putting mechanical stress on your arterial walls. They promote insulin resistance, leading to higher blood sugar levels that damage your endothelium through a process called glycation. They increase inflammation throughout your body. They make your blood more likely to clot, and they suppress your immune system's ability to repair and heal damaged tissues. This is why stress management isn't just about feeling better emotionally, though that's certainly important. It's about giving your arteries a chance to heal. When you practice meditation, yoga, or other stress reduction techniques, you activate your parasympathetic nervous system, the rest and digest mode that allows healing to occur. Your heart rate slows. Your blood pressure drops. Your body shifts from defense mode to repair mode. Inflammation decreases. And that damaged endothelium finally gets the chance to regenerate and restore its function. In our studies, we've seen that the people who practice stress management consistently show the most dramatic improvements in their angiograms. It's not enough to eat well if you're stressed out all the time. It's not enough to exercise if you're eating foods that damage your arteries 3 times a day. It's not enough to take supplements if you're lonely and isolated. Everything works together, or nothing works at all. So now let me give you the practical steps, the actionable things you can do starting today to begin healing your arteries instead of damaging them. First, and most importantly, I want you to shift the foundation of your diet to whole, unprocessed plant foods. This means making vegetables, fruits, whole grains, legumes, nuts, and seeds the centerpiece of every meal. I'm not asking you to eat foods you hate. I'm not asking you to survive on bland salads. I'm asking you to explore the incredible diversity of plant foods available to you and learn how to prepare them in ways that are satisfying and delicious. Start your day with oatmeal, topped with berries, ground flax seeds, and walnuts instead of eggs or bacon. For lunch, have a hearty bean and vegetable soup with whole grain bread instead of a chicken sandwich. For dinner, try a stir-fry with tofu and colorful vegetables over brown rice, or a pasta dish with tomato sauce loaded with mushrooms, zucchini, and spinach. Snack on fruits, raw vegetables with hummus, or a handful of nuts. The goal is to eat until you're satisfied, not to restrict or starve yourself, but to choose foods that nourish rather than harm. You're worried that plant foods won't keep you full or give you energy. But I can tell you from working with thousands of patients that these fears are unfounded. You can get all the protein you need from plant sources. Beans, lentils, tofu, tempeh, whole grains, nuts, and seeds all contain protein. And when you eat a variety of these foods throughout the day, you get all the essential amino acids your body needs. You don't have to combine specific foods at each meal like we used to think. Your body is smart enough to pool amino acids and use them as needed. As for other nutrients, a whole food, plant-based diet is actually more nutrient-dense than a diet based on animal products. You'll get more fiber, more vitamins, more minerals, more antioxidants, and more beneficial phytochemicals. The only nutrient you need to supplement is vitamin B12, because it's not reliably found in plant foods. It's produced by bacteria, and in our modern sanitized world, we don't get enough from our environment. So I recommend taking a B12 supplement, around 500 micrograms daily or 2,000 micrograms weekly. That's it. That's the only supplement that's truly essential. You might also want to supplement with vitamin D if you don't get adequate sun exposure, which is common, especially as we age, and especially if you live in northern climates. But the key point is this: focus on food first. Get your omega-3s from ground flax seeds and walnuts. Not from fish oil capsules. Get your calcium from leafy greens, broccoli, and fortified plant milks, not from supplements that might end up calcifying your arteries instead of strengthening your bones. Get your antioxidants from colorful fruits and vegetables, not from pills that contain isolated compounds divorced from their natural context. The second practical step is to move your body regularly and moderately. I want you to commit to at least 30 minutes of moderate exercise most days of the week. This could be walking, swimming, cycling, dancing, gardening, whatever you enjoy and can sustain. The key word is moderate. You should be able to carry on a conversation while you're exercising. If you're gasping for breath, you're working too hard. If you're not breaking a sweat at all, you might want to pick up the pace slightly. Find that sweet spot where you feel energized rather than exhausted afterward. Consider adding gentle yoga or stretching to your routine. This helps maintain flexibility, which tends to decline with age, and it serves double duty as a stress management practice. The combination of movement and breath awareness in yoga is incredibly powerful for calming your nervous system and reducing inflammation. You don't have to twist yourself into a pretzel or stand on your head. Simple, gentle poses held with mindful breathing are sufficient. The third practical step, and this is absolutely crucial, is to develop a regular stress management practice. This might be the hardest step for many of you because we live in a culture that values busyness and productivity over rest and reflection. But I'm telling you, based on rigorous scientific research, that stress management is not optional. It's not a luxury. It's a necessity for cardiovascular health. Start with just 10 minutes a day of meditation or deep breathing. Sit comfortably, close your eyes, and focus on your breath. When your mind wanders, and it will, gently bring your attention back to your breathing. That's it. You don't have to empty your mind or achieve some transcendent state. You're simply training your nervous system to shift out of fight or flight mode and into rest and repair mode. Over time, you can extend this to 20 or 30 minutes, and you'll find that it becomes one of the most valuable parts of your day. Other stress management techniques that can be powerful include progressive muscle relaxation, guided imagery, spending time in nature, listening to calming music, or engaging in creative activities that absorb your attention. The key is to find something that works for you, and to do it consistently. This isn't about adding more items to your to-do list and feeling stressed about doing your stress management. It's about creating islands of calm in your day where your body can heal. The fourth practical step is to cultivate connection and community. This might seem unrelated to arterial health, but I assure you it's not. Loneliness and social isolation are major risk factors for heart disease. People who lack strong social connections have higher rates of heart attack, stroke, and death from all causes. This isn't just because lonely people might have unhealthy habits. Even when researchers control for diet, exercise, smoking, and other factors, the connection between social isolation and heart disease remains strong. Why? Because humans are social creatures. We evolved to live in communities, to support and be supported by others. When we're isolated, our bodies perceive it as a threat, and chronic threat activates those same stress pathways we talked about. Cortisol rises, inflammation increases, arterial damage accelerates. Conversely, when we feel connected, supported, and loved, our bodies relax. Oxytocin, often called the love hormone, has anti-inflammatory and cardioprotective effects. Simply holding hands with someone you care about can lower your blood pressure and heart rate. So I want you to prioritize relationships. Reach out to family and friends. Join a club or group based on your interests. Volunteer in your community. Attend religious or spiritual services if that's meaningful to you. Consider joining a support group for people making dietary and lifestyle changes. In our program, group support is a core component, and participants consistently tell us that the community they find is just as important as the diet and exercise guidelines. We're healing together, not in isolation. Now, I want you to imagine what it would feel like 6 months from now, a year from now, if you implemented these changes. Imagine waking up with more energy than you've had in years. Imagine walking up a flight of stairs without chest pain or breathlessness. Imagine looking at your grandchildren and knowing that you're likely to be around to see them grow up, to attend their graduations, maybe even their weddings. Imagine going to your doctor for a checkup and hearing words like, "Remarkable improvement," and "I don't know how you did it." Imagine the freedom of needing fewer medications, fewer doctor visits, fewer worries about the next heart attack or stroke. This isn't fantasy. This is what I've seen happen over and over again in my patients who commit to these lifestyle changes. I've seen people who were told they needed immediate bypass surgery choose to try our program instead and become essentially symptom-free within weeks. I've seen angiograms that showed severe blockages, followed by angiograms a year later showing measurably less blockage. I've seen people get off medications they thought they'd be on for life. I've seen transformations that conventional cardiology said were impossible. But I want to be honest with you about something. This isn't easy. Changing your diet means changing habits you've had for decades. It means learning new recipes, shopping differently, sometimes eating differently from your family and friends. It means dealing with social situations where people question your choices or try to convince you that you're being too extreme. Changing your relationship with exercise means letting go of the no pain, no gain mentality and accepting that moderate movement is sufficient. It means being patient with yourself as you build new habits. And developing stress management and social connection means being vulnerable, reaching out, admitting that you need support. There will be days when you slip up, when you eat something you know isn't serving your health, when you skip your meditation, when you feel lonely despite your best efforts to connect. That's human, that's normal. The key is not perfection. The key is progress, persistence, and self-compassion. Every meal is a new opportunity to nourish yourself. Every day is a new opportunity to move your body, calm your mind, and reach out to others. I also want you to understand that these changes work synergistically. Each component enhances the others. The whole food, plant-based diet gives you more energy, which makes exercise easier and more enjoyable. Exercise and stress management improve your mood and mental clarity, which makes it easier to make good food choices. Social connection provides support and accountability, which helps you stick with the program. And as you start feeling better, as your chest pain diminishes, as your energy increases, as your health markers improve, you create a positive feedback loop. Success breeds more success. Each small victory gives you the motivation and confidence to keep going. Now, let me show you how all of this connects to other areas of your health. Because when you heal your arteries, you're not just preventing heart attacks and strokes. You're transforming your entire physiology in ways that touch every system in your body. This is what I find most exciting about this work, and it's what keeps me passionate about it after more than 4 decades. The interventions that reverse heart disease also prevent and reverse many other chronic diseases that we've been told are inevitable consequences of aging. Let's start with your brain. Your brain is an incredibly vascular organ. It contains hundreds of miles of blood vessels and consumes about 20% of your body's oxygen, despite being only 2% of your body weight. Every thought you think, every memory you form, every decision you make depends on adequate blood flow to your brain cells. When your arteries are damaged, when they're narrowed by plaque, when your endothelium isn't producing enough nitric oxide to keep blood vessels relaxed and open, your brain suffers. This is why cardiovascular disease is one of the strongest risk factors for cognitive decline, dementia, and Alzheimer's disease. The same diet that heals your heart arteries heals your brain arteries. The same lifestyle interventions that reduce inflammation in your coronary vessels reduce inflammation in your cerebral vessels. We now know that what we used to call vascular dementia and what we called Alzheimer's disease aren't completely separate entities. Most people with dementia have both vascular pathology and Alzheimer's pathology in their brains, and they interact and amplify each other. When you improve your vascular health, you're protecting your cognitive function. You're reducing your risk of memory loss. You're preserving your ability to think clearly, to recognize your loved ones, to maintain your independence as you age. I've had numerous patients tell me that as they followed our program, not only did their chest pain disappear and their cardiac function improve, but their thinking became sharper. They could remember names better. They could focus more easily. The brain fog that they'd attributed to normal aging lifted. This isn't surprising when you understand the mechanisms. You're increasing blood flow to the brain. You're reducing oxidative stress and inflammation. You're providing the nutrients that support neurotransmitter production and neural health. And particularly important, you're reducing insulin resistance, which is increasingly recognized as a key factor in cognitive decline. Then there's cancer. We know that chronic inflammation is a major driver of cancer development. Inflammation creates an environment where damaged cells are more likely to become cancerous, where cancers are more likely to grow and spread, where your immune system is less effective at identifying and destroying cancer cells. The same dietary and lifestyle changes that reduce cardiovascular inflammation reduce cancer risk. Multiple large studies have shown that people who eat primarily whole plant foods have dramatically lower rates of colon cancer, breast cancer, prostate cancer, and many other common cancers. This isn't just correlation. We understand the mechanisms. Plant foods contain compounds that turn on tumor suppressor genes. They enhance your body's detoxification systems. They modulate hormone levels in ways that reduce hormone-driven cancers. They feed beneficial gut bacteria that produce metabolites with anti-cancer properties. In fact, some of the most exciting research happening right now is looking at how diet and lifestyle interventions can slow or even reverse early-stage prostate cancer. We conducted a study in collaboration with Dr. Peter Carroll at USF, where men with early-stage prostate cancer, the kind that's often managed with active surveillance, were put on our comprehensive lifestyle program. We tracked various biomarkers and found that their PSA's levels, which typically rise over time indicating cancer progression, actually decreased. Even more remarkably, when we looked at gene expression in their prostate tissue, we found that hundreds of genes had changed their activity. Genes that promote cancer growth were turned down, while genes that suppress tumors were turned up. We literally changed their genetic expression through diet and lifestyle alone. Now let's talk about diabetes, because this is another area where the connections are profound. Type 2 diabetes and heart disease are so closely linked that they're sometimes called two sides of the same coin. The root cause of type 2 diabetes isn't just about eating too much sugar. It's about insulin resistance, and insulin resistance is largely caused by the accumulation of fat inside muscle cells and liver cells where it doesn't belong. This intracellular fat interferes with insulin signaling. Your pancreas has to produce more and more insulin to get the same effect, and eventually it can't keep up and your blood sugar rises. Here's what's fascinating. That intracellular fat doesn't come primarily from eating carbohydrates. It comes primarily from eating fat, particularly saturated fat from animal products. When you eat a diet high in saturated fat, even if you're not eating excessive calories, fat accumulates in your muscle and liver cells. This is why people can develop type 2 diabetes even if they're not overweight. The fat is hidden inside cells where you can't see it. But when you switch to a whole food, plant-based diet that's naturally low in fat, especially saturated fat, that intracellular fat gets cleared out. Insulin sensitivity improves, blood sugar normalizes. And this happens quickly, often within days or weeks, long before significant weight loss occurs. I've seen people who've been diabetic for 20 or 30 years, who've been on insulin and multiple medications, become completely non-diabetic within months of starting our program. Their doctors are shocked. They themselves are shocked. But it makes perfect sense when you understand the underlying physiology. We're not just managing diabetes, we're removing the cause. And when you reverse diabetes, you dramatically reduce your risk of all the complications that make diabetes so devastating. The kidney disease, the nerve damage, the vision loss, the increased risk of heart attack and stroke. All of these complications are driven by the same vascular damage and inflammation we've been talking about. Heal the vasculature and you prevent the complications. Then there's arthritis and chronic pain. Again, inflammation is the common thread. The same inflammatory processes that damage your arteries also attack your joints, creating pain, stiffness, and progressive joint destruction in conditions like rheumatoid arthritis. We know that diet profoundly affects inflammation. Studies have shown that people with rheumatoid arthritis who switch to a whole food, plant-based diet often experience dramatic reductions in pain and joint swelling. Some are able to reduce or eliminate their anti-inflammatory medications. The mechanism is multifaceted. You're removing pro-inflammatory foods. You're adding anti-inflammatory compounds from plants. You're changing your gut microbiome in ways that reduce system-wide inflammation. And you're often losing excess weight, which reduces mechanical stress on joints. Even osteoarthritis, which we think of as simple wear and tear, has an inflammatory component. And anything that reduces inflammation and provides the nutrients needed for cartilage repair can slow progression and reduce pain. I've had patients who were considering joint replacement surgery find that their pain became manageable, their function improved. And surgery became unnecessary after following our program. What about kidney disease? Your kidneys are incredibly vascular organs, filtering your entire blood volume dozens of times per day. They're vulnerable to the same vascular damage that affects your heart and brain. High blood pressure, diabetes, and systemic inflammation all damage kidney function over time. We see this in the statistics. Cardiovascular disease and kidney disease march together. But the reverse is also true. Interventions that heal your vasculature protect your kidney. In fact, there's emerging evidence that plant-based diets may actually be therapeutic for people with existing kidney disease. Contrary to old beliefs that limiting protein meant limiting all protein. It turns out that plant protein is much gentler on the kidneys than animal protein. It produces fewer acidic metabolites that the kidneys have to process. It doesn't trigger the same inflammatory and oxidative stress responses. Studies are showing that people with chronic kidney disease who switch to plant-based diets often see their kidney function stabilize or even improve, and they have fewer complications and slower progression toward dialysis. I want to share with you another profound connection that's only recently being fully appreciated, and that's the connection between gut health and cardiovascular health. Your gut contains trillions of bacteria, collectively called your microbiome, and these bacteria are not passive passengers. They're active participants in your health, producing compounds that affect inflammation, metabolism, immune function, and even mood and behavior. The composition of your gut microbiome is largely determined by what you eat. When you eat a diet high in animal products and low in fiber, you feed bacteria that produce inflammatory compounds, including TMAO that we talked about earlier. When you eat a diverse array of plant foods high in fiber, you feed bacteria that produce beneficial short-chain fatty acids like butyrate, which have powerful anti-inflammatory effects throughout your body. This gut-heart axis is one of the most exciting areas of research right now. We're discovering that a healthy microbiome doesn't just help with digestion, it reduces cardiovascular risk. It improves endothelial function, it regulates blood pressure, it influences cholesterol metabolism. Some researchers believe that the cardiovascular benefits of plant-based diets are mediated as much through the microbiome as through direct nutritional effects. You're not just feeding yourself, you're feeding trillions of microscopic partners whose health determines your health. Now I want to address something that I know many of you are thinking. You're thinking, Dr. Ornish, this sounds wonderful, but I'm already over 60. I've been eating the standard American diet for decades. I've probably already done significant damage. Is it too late for me? And I want to look you in the eye, metaphorically speaking, and tell you with absolute confidence, it is never too late. Your body has a remarkable capacity for healing when you give it what it needs and stop giving it what's harming it. In our studies, the average age of participants was in the 60s. These weren't young people with early disease. These were people with severe advanced coronary artery disease, people with significant blockages, people who'd already had heart attacks, people who were symptomatic with chest pain. And yet, when they made comprehensive lifestyle changes, their bodies healed. Their arteries literally remodeled themselves. Plaques shrunk. Endothelial function improved. New blood vessels grew to bypass blockages through a process called angiogenesis. I had a patient who started our program at 82 years old. 82, he'd had 2 previous heart attacks and had multiple stents. His cardiologist told him he was essentially living on borrowed time and that he should take it easy and enjoy whatever time he had left. But he didn't want to just wait to die. He wanted to live fully for whatever time remained. So he committed fully to the program, changed his diet completely, started walking daily, began meditating, joined our support groups. 2 years later, at 84, he was hiking in the mountains, playing with his great-grandchildren and feeling better than he had in 20 years. His cardiologist was astonished at his cardiac function. That's not an isolated case. That's what's possible when you work with your body's innate healing capacity instead of against it. The key is to start now, not tomorrow, not next week after you finish the food in your refrigerator, not next month after the holidays. Now, today, this very meal. Because every meal is doing something to your body. It's either promoting healing or promoting damage. There's no neutral. And the beautiful thing is that you'll start feeling benefits quickly. Most people notice increased energy within days. Reduction in chest pain, if they have it, often within weeks. Improvements in blood pressure, blood sugar, and cholesterol within weeks to months. The feedback is rapid enough that it reinforces your commitment and makes the changes sustainable. But I also want to be realistic with you about the challenges. We live in a food environment that's actively hostile to health. Everywhere you turn, you're bombarded with advertisements for foods that will harm you. Restaurants serve portions that are 2 or 3 times what anyone needs. Social gatherings revolve around eating, and much of what's available is specifically engineered to be hyperpalatable, to override your natural satiety signals, to make you want to eat more even when you're full. Sugar, salt, and fat are combined in ratios that don't exist in nature, ratios that light up the reward centers in your brain the same way addictive drugs do. So you're not just changing your diet, you're going against the current of your entire culture. You're choosing to eat differently from most people around you. And that takes courage. It takes conviction. It takes a clear understanding of why you're doing this and what you stand to gain. This is why I emphasize that this isn't about willpower. Willpower is a limited resource that gets depleted. This is about creating an environment and a mindset that support your health. It's about having foods available that are healthy and delicious so you don't feel deprived. It's about finding restaurants that offer plant-based options or learning to navigate restaurant menus. It's about communicating with family and friends about your needs without being preachy or making them feel judged. It's about self-compassion when you slip up instead of self-criticism that leads to giving up entirely. I always tell people to focus on what you're adding, not just what you're removing. Don't think about all the foods you can't eat anymore. Think about all the new foods you're discovering. Have you ever tried Ethiopian food with its diverse array of vegetable and lentil stews? Have you explored Indian cuisine beyond butter chicken, discovering dishes like chana masala and bengan barda? Have you made a really good veggie burger that's juicy and satisfying? Have you discovered how delicious roasted Brussels sprouts can be when you cook them right? Have you tried a date sweetened chocolate smoothie that tastes like a milkshake? There's a whole world of plant-based cuisine out there, from every culture on Earth, because most traditional cuisines around the world were plant-based by necessity. And here's something else that's important. This isn't about perfection. I don't expect you to eat a perfect diet every single day for the rest of your life. What I found is that when people follow the program strictly for a few months and really experience how good they can feel, they naturally want to continue because the benefits are so profound. They might occasionally have something that's not on the program at a special occasion, and that's fine. The body can handle occasional indulgences if your baseline is healthy. What matters is what you do most of the time, day in and day out. The research supports this. In our studies, we didn't lock people in a facility and control every morsel of food they ate. They lived in the real world with all its temptations and challenges. What we found was that the people who showed the most reversal of heart disease were those who adhered to the program most closely. There was a dose-response relationship. The more changes people made, the better their outcomes. But even people who made moderate changes saw benefits. Progress, not perfection, is the goal. Now, I want to talk about something that might seem tangential, but is actually central to all of this. And that's the question of meaning and purpose. Why are you doing this? Is it just to avoid a heart attack? Is it just to live longer? Those are valid reasons. But they're not always sufficient to sustain change over the long term. What I've found is that people are most successful when they connect these lifestyle changes to their deeper values and sense of purpose. Maybe you want to be healthy so you can be present for your grandchildren. Maybe you want to have the energy to pursue a passion or hobby that brings you joy. Maybe you want to be able to travel and explore. Maybe you want to serve others through volunteering or community involvement. Maybe you want to spend your later years deepening relationships rather than managing illness. When you connect your daily choices to these deeper purposes, everything shifts. You're not just avoiding animal products because some doctor told you to. You're nourishing yourself so you can fulfill your purpose. You're not just meditating because it's on a list. You're creating inner peace so you can be fully present with the people you love. You're not just exercising because you should. You're building strength and stamina so you can do the things that matter to you. This is why our program includes helping people explore these deeper questions. What makes your life worth living? What brings you joy? What do you want your legacy to be? When you're clear on these things, healthy choices become easier because they're aligned with what you truly care about. They're not sacrifices. They're investments in the life you want to live. And here's what I've seen over and over again. When people make these comprehensive lifestyle changes, they don't just prevent or reverse disease. They often describe feeling more alive than they have in years or even decades. They talk about experiencing more joy, more gratitude, more connection. They discover capacities they didn't know they had. They pursue dreams they'd given up on. They heal relationships. They find new meaning. This isn't just about adding years to your life. It's about adding life to your years. I remember a woman, let's call her Helen, who came to one of our retreats at 73. She'd had a heart attack 6 months earlier and was profoundly depressed. She told me she felt like her life was over, that she was just waiting to die. She'd lost her sense of purpose. Her children were grown and lived far away. Her husband had passed away years earlier. She felt isolated, frightened, and hopeless. But she'd heard about our program and thought she'd give it one last try. During the week of the retreat, something shifted. She connected with other participants who were going through similar struggles. She learned to meditate and had her first taste of inner peace in years. She discovered that she actually enjoyed the food. And most importantly, she started to envision a different future. By the end of the week, she was talking about things she wanted to do, places she wanted to visit, ways she wanted to contribute. The depression hadn't completely lifted, but light was breaking through. Over the following year, Helen transformed her life. She stuck with the diet and lifestyle practices. She joined a local support group and made deep friendship. She started volunteering at a literacy center teaching adults to read. She reconnected with her passion for painting, something she'd given up decades earlier. And yes, her cardiac function improved dramatically. Her cholesterol and blood pressure normalized. She lost 40 pounds. But more importantly, she found a reason to live. She found joy again. When I saw her at a reunion 2 years later, she looked 20 years younger. Not just physically, though she did look healthier, but there was a light in her eyes, an aliveness, a vitality that hadn't been there before. She told me that the heart attack, as terrible as it was, had been a wake-up call. It forced her to examine her life and make changes she'd been avoiding. She said our program gave her the tools, but she had to choose to use them. She had to choose life over resignation. That's what I'm asking you to do right now. Choose life, choose health, choose vitality, not in some distant future after you get through whatever is on your plate right now. But today, this moment, this meal, this breath, because your body is always listening, your cells are always responding, and they're waiting for you to give them what they need to heal. Let me give you a practical 30-day challenge to get started. For the next 30 days, commit to eating a whole food, plant-based diet. No animal products of any kind. No processed foods, no oil, just whole grains, legumes, vegetables, fruits, nuts, and seeds prepared simply. For the next 30 days, commit to 30 minutes of moderate exercise at least 5 days a week. Walking is perfect. For the next 30 days, commit to at least 10 minutes of meditation or deep breathing every day. And for the next 30 days, commit to reaching out to at least one person each week to nurture connection. 30 days. That's all I'm asking. Not the rest of your life. Just 30 days. Because I know that if you truly commit for 30 days, you'll feel so much better that you'll want to continue. You'll have more energy. You'll sleep better. If you have chest pain, it will likely be gone or dramatically reduced. Your numbers will improve. Your clothes will fit better. And most importantly, you'll have proven to yourself that you can do this. You'll have broken through the inertia and the doubt and the fear. Keep a journal during these 30 days. Write down what you eat. Write down how you feel. Write down any changes you notice, physical or emotional. Write down your struggles and your victories. This will help you stay accountable and will also give you a record to look back on so you can see how far you've come. And please find support. Don't try to do this alone. Whether it's joining one of our programs, finding a local plant-based support group, connecting with others online, or simply asking family and friends to support you, you need community. Remember, loneliness and isolation are risk factors for heart disease. Connection and community are protective. We're not meant to do any of this alone. As we come to the end of our time together, I want to leave you with this thought. You are far more powerful than you've been led to believe. The medical system has taught you that you're a passive recipient of health or illness. That disease just happens to you based on your genes and bad luck. That your job is to take the medications you're prescribed and undergo the procedures you're told you need. But that's not the whole truth. Yes, Modern medicine can save your life in an acute crisis. Yes, there are genetic factors we can't control, but for the vast majority of chronic diseases, including heart disease, you have far more control than you've been told. Your body wants to heal. It's designed to heal. It's constantly trying to repair damage, fight off infections, maintain balance. When you cut yourself, your body heals the wound. When you break a bone, your body knits it back together. And when you damage your arteries with years of unhealthy living, your body will heal those too if you give it the chance. You just have to stop re-injuring them every single day and start providing the conditions that allow healing to occur. This isn't about blame or guilt for past choices. You did the best you could with the information and resources you had, but now you have new information. Now you understand that those 3 habits you thought were healthy are actually undermining your health. Now you understand the mechanisms of arterial damage and healing. Now you know that it's never too late, and now you have a choice. You can continue on the path you've been on, accepting whatever fate brings, or you can take control of the one thing that's truly yours to control. How you live your life, how you nourish your body, how you move, how you manage stress, how you connect with others. These are your choices, and they're the most important choices you'll ever make because they determine the quality and quantity of your life. I've dedicated my entire career to this work because I believe in the power of lifestyle medicine. I believe in your capacity to heal. I believe that most of the suffering from chronic disease is unnecessary and preventable. And I believe that when you heal yourself, you change the world because you become an example to others. You reduce the burden on our healthcare system, and you're able to contribute your gifts and talents for more years. So here's my final message to you. You are not a statistic. You are not your diagnosis. You are not defined by your age or your past or the damage that's already been done. You are a human being with immense capacity for healing, growth, and transformation. Every cell in your body is capable of change. Your genes respond to your choices. Your arteries can heal. Your life can be different. Start today. Start right now. Make the next meal a healing meal. Take a walk today. Sit quietly and breathe. Call someone you care about. Take one step, then another, then another. The journey of 1,000 miles begins with a single step, and the journey to vibrant health begins with a single choice. Your heart is waiting. Your arteries are waiting. Your body is waiting. And I'm here, along with thousands of others who have walked this path, cheering you on, believing in you, knowing that you can do this. Not because it's easy, but because you're capable. Not because it's quick, but because it's worth it. Not because you're perfect, but because you're human, and humans have the remarkable ability to learn, to change, to heal, and to thrive. Thank you for giving me your time and attention. Thank you for being open to this message. And thank you for taking responsibility for your health. The power is in your hands. Use it wisely. Use it compassionately. And use it to create the vibrant, healthy, joyful life you deserve. Your best years can still be ahead of you. Make them count.